Hello, I'm Professor Lucien, and this is Lecture 3 for Safety 380, Introduction to Occupational Safety and Health. Last time, in Lecture 2, we talked about the Industrial Revolution and how it affected changes in society and how we do work, and how we move about. It really fundamentally changed and gave birth to the occupational safety and health field. We talked a little bit about Frederick Taylor and how his scientific management was applied, and even though productivity improved, conditions really didn't. And then how Taylor's initial work actually, gave the idea to Henry Ford to build the assembly line. So now what I'd like to do is talk about HW Heinrich and his contributions to safety, and then what are current safety professionals saying about his findings. Another reminder that you're going to be taking a quiz this week. So please go to the thing, I don't know if you want to call it a module or box with Respondus Monitor. Do the practice and make sure you're ready to take the quiz. It'll be based on lectures 2 and 3. The study sheets and the questions at the end of the chapter are the primary sources for the questions. It's all multiple choice. For this lecture, you'll also be reading a chapter from Heinrich. I'm sorry about the PDF copy. It's not great, but I think you can go in and change the view so it's horizontal, not vertical. And then there's also a paper by Fredmanuel, and I'll be talking about that as well. You don't have to read it word for word. Just kind of take a look at it. That's all I'm really asking. I'll cover most of it. And then finally, there'll be an additional video called The McWane Story Revisited. Another caution. And maybe some parts may be difficult. They're adult themes, issues. But this is a case in which a company put production and profits above worker safety and health. So check that out as well. Heinrich's book, Industrial Accident Prevention. This is a later version. This isn't the 1931. This is more of a recent one. Not very sure. I have a couple versions of his books that get republished and edited. But the original work was in 1931, and probably the most discussed finding from Heinrich's work was this direct or proximate causes of accidents. And what he claims he did, is he reviewed like 10, 15,000 insurance claims, work insurance claims, and assigned a single cause to it. Now, right away, that's an issue, because usually there's multiple issues, multiple factors that led to an accident, but he tried to narrow it down to one. And he either assigned it unsafe acts or unsafe conditions. And you can see the breakdown here. 88%, almost 90% of the claims, he was able to assign unsafe actions or unsafe behaviors of the person. 10% were conditions, 2% unpreventable. Another issue, other than assigning one singular factor, is we didn't know about fundamental attribution error back then. So the accident reports themselves probably were influenced by that, seen every day psychological theory. And if any of you taken psych probably have heard of this, that we tend to blame the person most proximal to the accident. On the other side of that same coin, if we're the one in the accident, we're usually able to identify multiple factors, situational, environmental, that put us in this position that we didn't realize, until the accident occurred. It's likely that the people who did the accident investigations for those reports had a natural tendency to blame the worker. That we feel that the unsafe act, as I've got down below, was intentional. They full well knew what they were doing. They made that decision, and they knew they were going to get hurt. So we blame them. I don't think that's the way things are. I think humans, we have limitations as far as sensing our environment, perceiving what's there, and then taking action. Against where a failure in that perceptual motorcycle could possibly lead us to getting injured. I don't think we intend it. I think it's unintended. So, the only time it'd be intentional is if the person's sadistic or attempting something that's criminal. But I don't think that most people are that way. We tend to be hedonistic, pleasure-seeking, pain avoidance. So we don't tend to do it. At the bottom, I talk about accident proneness. Is that a personality trait we can be born with? Research would say no. that there may be some people whose perception of motorcycle may not be as keen or attuned to factors that could lead to an accident. Like, I am very sensitive to environmental factors, and I'm trying to think ahead a few steps. Even when I drive, I do that. But some people just, they're maybe easily distracted. There's ADHD, there's things like that they're not processing it, and therefore it may seem like they get hurt more often, or they should have known better, but it's just not. It's sort of the situation they're in. And also, there's a researcher out of Australia, down under, mate. His name is Dr. Sidney Decker, and I think he had said that, you have a person get injured, so you pluck them out, and you're going to retrain them. You're going to teach them so they behave right. But if you're to put a new person in while you're doing that, would they not think and react the same way? Is it more about environmental and situational cues that lead to our perception of what needs to be done, and therefore a decision of which behavior to adhere to? Or maybe not even that much thought goes into it. So I tend to believe, let's not blame the worker. Let's find out what we can do to better design a more resilient workplace task or whatever, so that more people can be successful and not get hurt, and hopefully elicit some satisfaction from it. Something you'll be hearing a lot from me this semester. Another thing that this is used for, the 90%, is the behavioral psychologists in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They had this whole movement of behavioral-based safety. You still hear about it quite a bit. And the reason they had so much steam is because they were saying that, well, if 90% of accidents in the workplace are caused by unsafe actions or by unsafe behaviors, let's correct the behavior. Let's correct the person. And so they were using behavioral modification, like B.F. Skinner, his ABC. Let's extinguish the behaviors we don't want and promote the ones we do. The problem is, again, like Decker had said, or I just give an example, is, if we were to put a new person into that same set, would they act the same way? And if they would, then we got to redesign the work. Sure, there's some training, there's some contribution, but I think there's a lot more we can do to make the environment more resilient to, and this is what Dr. Todd Conklin would say, is to be able to fail safe, where you make an error, but you don't get hurt. And that gets to the job and task design. Taylor did something like this, but his original assumptions of who the person is and his assumptions of what you want are different. I want the person to be successful, I want them to be safe, and I want them to be happy or, proud of the work they do. And that is more of a systems approach, not something we're going to talk about in here too much. It's something that's in later classes. We're really focusing on the basics in this class, but just realize there's a place to go from here. There's additional work that was published in Heinrich's book, the Domino Theory, that Domino's is pizza. No. This is like the third time I've recorded this. I can't remember all my jokes, but what he basically felt is that there's a unilateral set of factors, and if they all contact each other, the last one would cause an accident. But if we could study it and remove one of the dominoes, the accident wouldn't occur. It's not true. Accidents are not a unilateral process. Not each one has to happen. It's more organic and complex. But he's the first to introduce a basic systems approach. So let's give credit where credit is due. On the right, I've got the iceberg analogy. And all he's trying to show here is that there's costs that are hidden, like an iceberg. Ice is, I think, like 90% density of what water is. So about 10% of the volume of the iceberg is above the water. It floats. I looked it up. Anyway, but it's the 1-to-4 ratio that he studied some different case studies of accidents, and here's what the medical costs were, here's what the compensation was, but then he tried to also capture the loss. You can see the list here. So there's a lot of other losses that occur, and he just was trying to make a point that it's more expensive than you think if an accident occurs. Therefore, preventing it is the best thing to do. The pyramid is another highly debated, contentious theory of his. And what he did is he took the frequency and the severity of all the reports, and he came up with an overall ratio here. For every 330 exposures, 300 were no injury, 29 were minor, 1 is major. So the 29 is like first aid, or at least you can go back to work. The major includes death, amputation, and serious disability. But the 300 are like near misses. And there's a group, they call themselves Serious Injury Fatality Experts, SIF. And Fredmanuel is part of that group, where they look at national injury and illness data through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it shows that the less severe injury rate is going down, continually going down, yet severe injury and fatalities either are going up or staying pretty steady. So what they're saying is focusing on the near misses, the minor stuff, isn't helping anything. That the things that are causing major injuries are very different, completely different than the no injury. But with many things, if you just turn the page and read some more, you'll see what the author really meant. And what I interpret from, reading Heinrich's books, when you turn the page for this particular theory, he's saying there's value in studying outcomes that are less severe. That the outcome, the severity outcome of an accident can be nothing or it can be bad. And so therefore it's more of a random chance or inches and seconds. Let me give you an example. I climb a ladder and I fall off. And I don't get hurt at all. I just look around like, I hope nobody saw that. Look, they laugh at me. And I get right back on the ladder and try to finish the task. I climb a ladder and I fall. I get sort of a minor odd hurts a little bit, and maybe I walk it off. So after a short amount of time, whether I get treatment or not, I get back on there and I finish it. I climb a ladder and I fall. I hurt myself. I heard something snap, and so I got to go to the hospital to get treated. I get treated. Eventually I can get back, but I fully recover. I climb up a ladder and I fall, but this time I fall weird on my head and my neck, and I suffer a spine injury, a permanent spine injury. The same climbing of the ladder resulted in multiple different outcomes. Inches and seconds, random chance. And what Heinrich is trying to show what this pyramid is, and what I use it, is that let's not wait for the severe outcome before we investigate and try to prevent. Let's not just look at the cases that resulted in something that was really severe to try to improve safety in the workplace. Let's consider all things that are reported. It doesn't have to result in a major injury to be investigated. That's the way I view it. I'm not saying there's a connection between the near misses and the majors. If I'm tiptoeing up on top of a 6-story building and I slip, there's very few no injury cases there. I'm going to fall 6 stories and it's going to be bad. He's saying overall, whether you're a ladder or you trip, or using tools or whatever it might be, or lifting a box or reaching for something, more than likely it's going to be no injury or really, really minor. But those still should be reported, and they should be studied to try to prevent them again, making the design of work more resilient so people can fail safe, as Conklin says. Heinrich also goes on to show a connection between efficiency and safety, more so than Frederick Taylor attempted to. And he also identifies executives or top management as a key player in making sure a workplace is safe. I totally agree with that. The paper I want you to read is by Fredmanuel. He's got all kinds of books. He's holding one there. I've got The Practice of Safety. It's cited in the National Safety Council, Advanced Safety Management. The guy's published a lot of work. He's an engineer. Actually, he had to reach out to me not too long ago. I was just cleaning out my inbox, and I kept those. Because he's in his 90s, and I don't know how much more he's going to be working. But he criticized 2 of Heinrich's things, and I talked about them before. It's the 88%, 10% 2, and also the pyramid in his paper. It's interesting to discuss how it applies today, and I don't think it was right for Manuel to criticize the validity just because he couldn't get his hands on Heinrich's original data. Replicate it today. Of course, he cherry picks his support So that doesn't make it valid. Though people read it, and they're like, oh, he's published books, so he must know exactly what's going on. So go ahead and peruse it, or just read the abstract or the executive summary. But just realize there are people who are considered very smart, top of our field. This guy is highly recognized. He's like in the Hall of Fame. But I don't think he interpreted this particular work in an unbiased manner. That's what I'll say about it. Because I think I'm taking out of it what I need. I don't know what he needed. So I just want to show you here that the protection factor, over on the left, we've got very basic compliance things we're going to talk about in this class and some other classes. But then as you move from left to right, the protection factor goes up as you become more systems approached, involving the workers, things that are more organizational design and management, which we have other classes. I just realized that the context of this course and what we talk about is probably going to be somewhat limited in the protective factor when it comes to safety versus what we'd cover. But you got to crawl before you walk, walk before you run, run before you fly. Isn't that cute? Okay. Oh, we're getting to the end here. So please watch the McWane story revisited. Again, adult advisory because of some of the things they talk about and cover. But I want you to see a case study of a company that had started off putting production and profits above workers. And then I also want you to realize that there is a debate about, severity of outcomes, what should be investigated, what causes accidents. We're still trying to understand it, but if you take other courses, we'll discuss things like Todd Coughlin's work, like Sidney Decker's work. There's a lot more we know, but in this course, what I'm trying to do is give you the background information of where things come from. So I hope this was interesting to you. Again, this week we're doing a quiz. Use the study sheets to prepare. You'll have multiple opportunities. Read the instructions. Make sure you get the Respondus monitor set up. You'll have, I think, 2 opportunities to take the quiz just so you get comfortable with it. And then please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns or any issues with the quiz or the assignment for this week.